what is your advice in making the argument for bringing feelings into the workplace?
Great question. I work with executives who previously had these feelings where maybe culture wasn't super important. They're about the work and getting the work done. And like I said, really have that more logical sense of like, well, we come to work, we do good work, we go home, culture's not important. And it's almost like a fun experience to win them over and get them to believe in culture and kind of buy into what it can do for people. And I have to say that my experience with every executive has been different, but it's come through my little inner marketer, which is branding the stories back to folks, being able to show them how things like culture and things like feelings matter. Um, we didn't used to have like a robust paternity leave program. And think that was one of the turning points is we introduced one. And the general thought from the executive team was, I don't really see anyone taking advantage of this program. It just seemed, it was feelings. I was like, well, who doesn't want to be at home with their new baby and soak up all the snuggles and blank stares? But we had a male employee take that paternity leave, and he came back and he wrote this wonderful email to the VP, the CEO, to me of just, this was my third child. I never got this time at prior companies. I cannot thank you enough. And it was effusive with emotion. I mean, it was just,
Mm.
it meant a lot to him and meant a lot to his wife. And that was something where it was like, we were able to retain this person a time and time again because of that. So being able to tie the things like, because you gave this person flexibility, because you sent this person a gift when they got a new home, because you really tapped into the feelings when this person had a bad day and you took that walk with them around the block, because you designed experiences that were thoughtful and included the voices in the room, including the person that's nervous and anxious to speak up because they're the only, woman in the space. That keeps people at companies. And once you can tell those stories to CEOs, to VPs, to managers, whoever is kind of that next tier up, that's the good stuff when people start realizing we all live with feelings every day. And for a company to ignore those is cold and it doesn't create loyalty or your ability to nurture and retain great talent.
Let's go into that. Tell me more stories. I want to start, well, though, specifically with one where you were championing something at Square Root or prior to Square Root that was ineffective, like was not getting bought in, and it was a really scary time for you. What was that like? Tell me that story.
I mean, there are a ton, there is like a whole path behind me of like deserted programs that were tested and tried. And some even had a moment in the sun, but they don't work. And that can be really hard. I think the things that I've championed that just haven't worked, um, some of them came back and were able to shine at a future point in time. And I'm going to use one that I actually think is very successful. It's very now, but it was like a 6-year journey to get to the point of being able to say that to you. And it's sensitivity training. It's something that, every company goes through some version of harassment training. And the first time I kind of launched harassment training, it had like the legalities of it all. And it was received in a way that was just like, it was joking. Like there was just like jokes being made. We're watching this video together. And I remember just feeling like such a failure because as a woman, it didn't feel good to like see the men in the room joking. But I also like was watching the video and was like, this is just not for this team. This doesn't embrace our real day-to-day problems. It doesn't embrace microaggressions or bias. It's just talking about what's legal and what's not legal.
Mm.
And then I tried again. I tried building my own custom thing the next year, and we're starting to make headways, but it was just still like, how do we really get to the nitty gritty of what causes these things at work?
Mm.
And how do we get to the point where people want to be sensitive? Sensitive is not a word that people necessarily say, I want to be sensitive. It can actually be something people actively avoid being at work. And so really wanting people to be seen as sensitive and thoughtful of their impact on others. I had a lot of hard moments. I've had moments of like tears, frustration, doubt, questioning if I am just some intense feminist running through, Square Root, trying to make sure we all buy into these things. And I think that was a really hard journey. But then when you hear people, it's those stories again, people come back and say, my voice wasn't being heard. I was being interrupted again and again and again.
Mm.
But now people reach out to me and say, "Hey, I'm sorry for interrupting you." Or,
Mm.
"Hey, I said you guys at the end of that meeting, and I actually meant y'all." And that taking responsibility for the impact you might have had on someone, that's what we're seeing at Square Root today is people being more thoughtful. And when there are that kind of missteps that we all make, going the extra mile to reach out and apologize